So what if it's not anxiety this time? This is a question I ask myself all the time. I know you guys ask yourselves this question all the time. The answer to this is obviously something we don't want, right? If it's not anxiety, well then I guess, we're in trouble, or we're gonna be sick, or we're going to pass away. And that's something that's very, very difficult to make peace with. So it's not necessarily an answer that you need. You just need to somewhat make peace with the fact that there is always, I guess, a tiny chance that it's not anxiety this time. And you have to be able to roll with that. A quick disclaimer, I am not telling you whether or not to go to the hospital. You have to determine that for yourself. You're gonna have to have your own rules, your own system in place. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that, but you have to do something to make some type of peace, and that's what I did. I was tired of assuming that I was the tiny statistic. Sure, I could be a tiny statistic, but I have overwhelmingly a lot of evidence built up that this is anxiety, and I'm deciding to go with the overwhelming evidence that it's anxiety versus that tiny chance that it's something different this time. Something else that helped me with that question is like, I've felt this multiple times a day, for a long time, right? Months or years. So it kind of gets easier for you to be like, well, it's probably not, even though there's a tiny chance, I'm probably going to be okay. I've felt this time and time again. And that's another thing. If it feels pretty much the same every single time, and you've been dealing with it, and you've of course gone to the doctor and gotten checked out and everything and had your testing, and you've been multiple times, the more you've gone to the doctor and the more that you've experienced a certain symptom, and the more reassurance that you've gotten, and the overwhelming evidence is right there in front of you that this is most likely anxiety. And even though there's a tiny chance, I'm making a choice today to not rush to the hospital or not go to the ER or make that appointment. And that's really what it's about, right? With this question, we're basically trying to make a choice on whether or not I go to the hospital, or if I don't, or go to the ER, or go schedule a test or schedule an appointment or call an ambulance. You know what I mean? And in the beginning, this question it terrifies us, so we do it pretty much every time. And then the longer that you deal with this and the more evidence you build up and the longer that you've had your symptoms, it's easier for you to be kind of okay with that question. It still messes with you. And I'll kind of give you kind of an example of how that looked in my life. In the beginning, like, I would go all the time. My acceptance was zero, right? I didn't have as much reassurance. I didn't know what was going on. It was hard for me to accept that I was feeling this way. I'd go to the doctor, get told I'm fine, come home. I would have the symptoms again. So I thought I was getting misdiagnosed. So I had to go through this process for a few months. And then after that, my bills started to stack up because I didn't have insurance. And I would then start to drive to the ER or the hospital or whatever, and I'd just stay in the parking lot, sometimes stay the night, just in case I had to crawl in there, you know what I mean? Just in case I had to crawl in there if I was having a heart attack, so I could get some medical attention. So it at least gotten to the point to where I wasn't calling an ambulance or running into the ER or getting admitted into the hospital or anything like that for my symptoms. So that's kind of showing you how it does get a little bit better and how you can kind of make a little bit of peace with that question. And then once I got past cardiophobia and the panic attacks were stopping, and I was more focused on fears of cancer and stuff like that, I didn't feel the need to rush to the hospital, you know what I mean? So still that question would pop up, and I'd be like, well, what if this is cancer and I don't get a test, and I'm waiting too long and it's growing, and I would have all these spiraling thoughts with this, and irrational thoughts. And, I still struggled with it, but basically I stopped asking it as much, if that makes sense. So the answer obviously kind of sucks. Like, if it's not anxiety, then obviously it's something real. We just want to ask the question less and less, and we want to figure out a way to make peace with that question. I finally got fed up with being that tiny statistic. I have all this overwhelming evidence that it's not, not something real, and it is anxiety. And I have this 0.0001 chance that it's something horrible and I'm gonna die. I finally just got to the point to where I was tired of wasting my life thinking that I was the small statistic. So that question is a very difficult question to deal with. But the thing is the more evidence you have, you'll ask it less and less, and you'll have a little bit more of a peace about it, and you can actually have rational conversation with yourself. But in the beginning, it's definitely difficult. Basically, if you don't have any acceptance and you haven't been to the doctor and you haven't built any of this up, you're probably going to go through that rough period of where you're not willing to risk it. You know, you're not willing to gamble your life. You feel like it's like 75% chance that there's something wrong and 25% chance it's anxiety. So you will go through that. Some of this is just you're going to go through failure. You're going to go through trial and error. This is part of the experience. You're going to build awareness. You're going to build, finally, you're going to start to build evidence that this is anxiety. You're going to get all your necessary testing, and it's just unfortunately the process that we have to go through. Something else, guys, that I get asked a lot, and this is a difficult one. Once you're past anxiety, which is where I'm at, I've recovered. How do you know if it's something real or if it's anxiety trying to come back? Like, are you going to know the difference? And again, this isn't me telling you what to think or whatever. I'm just telling you what I did, you know, how I made peace with it. And I do feel like you're just going to know. You know, that's why this should motivate you if you're worried about that, to recover as fast as you can so you can build up as much time. So then if something happens, you're like, oh, okay, this feels definitely different. But you have to also develop some rules on whether or not to go or not. So my rules, and you have to formulate your own. You know, if I'm not bleeding from anywhere, I'm not talking about just getting cut. I'm talking about, you know, in my vomit or stool or pee, or, you know, coughing up stuff, you know, constantly having nosebleeds, or, you know, that kind of stuff. If I'm dealing with that, I'm definitely going to get checked out. If I'm, you know, nauseous all the time and I'm throwing up, I'm going to go definitely get help. You know what I mean? If it's obviously like a cold or the flu or COVID or sinus infection, I'm going to do whatever I can to get better and go get checked out with that. I also had to give myself a rule where it was like, if you are dealing with something that feels a little weird or a little off, you know, even if you're not doubled over in pain or having blood or anything like that, or sick, and it's been going on for a few days, and you're not putting negative energy or focus on it, but it's just lingering, you know, and you're far removed from anxiety, you're not jumping on Google or anything like that, you've done everything right? Because you learned your lessons when you were going through your recovery process, and it still lingers for a few days, and it seems like it's getting a little bit worse, which is another rule. If it's like getting worse, you know, it's probably smart to either go, you know, schedule a doctor's appointment or go to the ER if it's something a little bit more serious. Pain was also something. If I'm doubled over in pain or something, I'm probably going to go. Luckily, I haven't been in that situation. But I have been in a few situations where I did go because of something. I documented that on this channel. I had a lump behind my ear. I felt one day whenever I was just at work. I was like, huh, that's weird, you know, but I didn't jump on Google to look up, you know, cancer stuff. I didn't obsess about it or whatever. I was like, I'm going to give it some time, you know, and I documented that whole process to show you that I was removed from health anxiety and that you can handle things the right way, even if it's something real like that. But it's my belief that you will just know. You will know. You will be far removed from anxiety. You will know if it feels different. You know what I mean? I think it'll just feel different, if that makes sense. So hopefully this helped you a little bit. You got to come up with your own rules for the future, especially whenever you're removed from anxiety. But you also need rules right now for yourself, because anxiety symptoms do change, and unfortunately that's the most difficult thing, is whenever you experience a new set of symptoms. So I get that, trust me. I guess this turned out to be more of a discussion, but I did tell you and warn you that it's a very difficult question to answer. But guys, I love you all. Please go down below in the description and in the first pinned comment. There's a lot of resources. My recovery course to show you how I did recover from panic disorder, health anxiety, the step-by-step process, the blueprint that's helping so many people out there. It's down below in the description and in the first pinned comment. Get Elite Anxiety Bootcamp today. Actually, I'm going to put a coupon code on this video. Anxiety Recovery, save you 20 bucks on that at checkout. So online therapy is down below. If you've never done therapy, perfect opportunity to start that today. Please subscribe if you're new. Tons of videos and discussions. Please like this video if you got some value out of it. And until next time, guys, keep fighting.